This presentation is a review for the WISE test, and it covers the topic of budgeting. When you're budgeting, the first thing you want to be doing is setting financial goals for yourself. And this should be what are referred to as SMART financial goals. SMART's actually an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, achievable or attainable, take your pick, realistic, and with a time frame. The goal should be specific. For example, saving for a car. Measurable, specific amount, say $5,000. It should be action-oriented, achievable, or attainable, meaning you have the means to do it, maybe an income coming in, and you have that kind of money, and you can set maybe a specific amount you save from each paycheck. It should be realistic, meaning the goal that you have that you're saving up for should be something you can realistically achieve, and you should limit it with a time frame. Set a by date that you want to accomplish this. Goals can be short-term, in other words, less than 3 months. This is something like maybe saving for a gaming system or saving up to buy some new clothes. Intermediate goals are 3 to 12 months. This might be saving up for going on vacation. Goals can also be long-term, in other words, over a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, even more. It could be everything from saving for college to saving for a house or ultimately retiring. A budget, very simply, is a spending plan. You're basically looking at the money you have coming in, known as income, and comparing it to the money that you have going out. In other words, your expenses. First type of expense that you should be budgeting for is savings. Savings can be for a goal, saving up for a car, saving for prom, whatever it might be, or saving for an emergency. Medical expense. Car breaks down. You lose your job. Now you should have, as an adult, 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up in an emergency fund. The big key here is make yourself your first bill. Pay yourself first. Pay for that goal. Pay for that potential medical expense, whatever it might be, before you start spending your money on everything else you might want to. Another type of expense you might have is a fixed expense. These are your bigger ones. Your rent or your mortgage for where you live. Your car payment. Insurance payments. Payments for your cell phone. Things along those lines. They tend to be the exact same amount every month, and they're very easy to budget for because you know exactly how much they're going to be. Variable expenses are things like putting gas in your car, getting groceries, going out to eat, maybe buying clothes, entertainment expenses like going to the movies, or hobbies. These are all variable because they can change month to month. You get to choose how much you spend on each. You can increase the amount you spend or you can decrease the amount that you spend. Now, when you have your income equal to your expenses, you have what is referred to as a balanced budget. Your income equals your expenses. To be able to do this, you need to show reality, responsibility, and restraint. In other words, you set an amount that you want to spend, and you stick to that. You set an amount that you want to earn, and you stick to it. You don't distract yourself. You don't go off and start spending money on things that you don't need to, and that's where the restraint comes in. This involves something called delayed gratification. Yes, you want that item. Yes, you want to go do that whatever, but you may not have the money now. You want to save up for that and ultimately have the money to do it when you have the plan to spend that money, and you don't start spending money you had intended for other things on something you hadn't really thought about buying or spending on. Now, if your income is greater than your expenses, you have what is known as a budget surplus. You have brought in more in income than you have spent in expenses. And that's a good thing because now you maybe have more room in your budget for other items that you might need to spend money on, or you can set aside more money for savings or potential investment. If your income is less than your expenses, you have what is referred to as a budget deficit. You have spent more than you took in. Now, Maybe you were fortunate enough to be able to shift away some money from another expense item and you could ultimately balance it. But in this case, you budgeted for a certain amount of income and you budgeted for a certain amount of expenses, but you exceeded the amount that you took in. Now, in the short term, if you do that, you probably are starting to pull money from savings, or worse, putting things on a credit card. Long term, having your expenses exceed your income is not sustainable. You will run up a lot of debt and you will blow through all of your savings. So what you need to do is get your budget back into balance. Now, you got one of two choices. You can focus on the expense side. In other words, try to reduce your expenses. In order to do that, you decide some of those variable expenses that may need to go away or be reduced. Perhaps not go out to eat as much. Don't spend as much on clothes. Maybe carpool with somebody so you don't have as many gas expenses. Things along those lines you can do to reduce your expenses. Your second option is to focus on the income side of your budget and try to increase income. Perhaps this involves getting a few extra hours at work if you're an hourly worker and picking up some more money there. Maybe it involves working some overtime where you can make that time and a half. Maybe it involves picking up a second job part-time so you can increase your income. Perhaps it even involves going and finding a new job. That way you can afford to live the lifestyle that you want based on the expenses that you have. But regardless of what you choose to do, whether it be on the income side or the expense side, you need to get your budget back into balance so you can avoid having financial difficulty. This concludes this presentation.